My friends! StarWars.com has recently released a series of images and interviews regarding one of the new lightsaber designs that is going to be making an appearance in their High Republic series of releases. However, this lightsaber has some pretty serious flaws that really serve as a microcosm exemplary of everything wrong with their decision to focus so much storytelling on the era of the High Republic. If you don't know, the High Republic is an era that takes place 200 years before the events of The Phantom Menace and will be the focus of a multimedia release, including books, comics, graphic novels, and pretty much everything except for visual media. So at this point, we don't have any confirmed TV shows, video games, or feature films. That said, they are focusing pretty heavily on this era, and the first story told in this era will be releasing January 2021. But right now we've got a sneak peek at this interesting looking lightsaber, and it has some pretty dramatic implications both for the era that they chose and just Star Wars mythos as a whole. So first, looking at this lightsaber, we can see that it is a crossguard design, and the actual design of the crossguard is already pretty unique, but this one takes that one step further, featuring both a bladed crossguard as well as a mechanical or tactile element of the crossguard. And we do know, both from Star Wars Rebels as well as a slew of visual dictionaries and the like, that the crossguard design is one that predates Kylo Ren by several centuries. And while I do love the design of this crossguard, it does have some interesting implications that we are going to talk about later. First, I want to read an excerpt from the team behind this lightsaber. The quote reads, "We wanted to make the Jedi distinctive and instantly recognizable as Jedi Knights of the High Republic, and that applied not only to their clothing, but to their lightsabers as well," says Michael Siglain, Lucasfilm Publishing's creative director. "Internally, we often refer to the Jedi of this era as the Jedi Knights of the Round Table. Taking that idea one step further, their lightsabers can be viewed as their own versions of Excalibur." Looking at that quote, I think that idea really carries over to this lightsaber having a very Arthurian feel to it. And I really like this lightsaber. I really want a replica of it. It actually kind of reminds me of Senya's lightsaber from Star Wars The Old Republic, as well as the lightsabers used by the Eternal Empire, having that white, gold, and black kind of look and feel to it, and it has those ornate designs on the hilt, and along with those mechanical moving parts, which is something that we who have played the Old Republic will immediately associate with the Eternal Empire. The next quote comes from Jeff R. Thomas, who is the illustration manager at Disney Publishing, who says, "When designing Stellan's lightsaber, I looked at the iconic lightsabers that have already been established. We needed an iconic weapon that could stand beside other famous lightsabers, but at the same time be unique to him and evoke the time period of the High Republic." He goes on to say, "With the High Republic, we wanted to implement a more traditional crossguard, but I still wanted to include the lightsaber blade of the crossguard design, so that Stellan would be able to defend himself against saber attacks. This is where Excalibur came into play," Thomas says. "What would a lightsaber version of Excalibur look like? I started sketching and I came up with a silhouette that I really liked, but the practicality of holstering/sheathing it nagged at me until I had the idea that the crossguard didn't have to be stationary. Perhaps it could activate or deactivate with the saber. So after some more sketches and some time going back and forth with Lucasfilm, it was decided that the crossguard would activate as opposed to always being open, which would allow the saber a slimmer silhouette while holstered and would lend itself to some great visuals when activating. They also released some concept art of it both activated as well as sheathed, and we can see that the sheath is very different from the lightsaber, just the standard cover tech or even D-ring clips used in the original and prequel trilogy, and it does have that very knightly feel of a scabbard almost, or at least the descending leather or cloth straps that would attach to the scabbard. So you may be thinking, it sounds like I really love this design, so what is my big problem with it? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the crossguard design was incredibly popular centuries before the existence of Kylo Ren, being a much older design. However, much like the curved lightsaber hilt, the crossguard lightsaber fell out of favor primarily due to the lack of lightsaber-wielding opponents. The crossguard and the curved hilt are both suboptimal for deflecting against blaster shots, and so in an era where blaster-wielding enemies would have been the most common opponent of the Jedi Knights, the crossguard actually becomes a little bit more of a hindrance than a help. We even see here in the article that he included the blade so that he could fight against lightsaber-wielding opponents, but this is a problem because the High Republic era really isn't that long before the Phantom Menace. While 200 years might sound like a long time, when we're talking about Star Wars with a 20,000-year history, or really 25,000 years, 200 is nothing more than a blip, and not that much should have actually changed between the era of the High Republic and the era of the prequels, especially considering how slow technology changes in the Star Wars universe. Adding to that, there were no lightsaber-wielding opponents during the era 200 years before the Phantom Menace.
It's unthinkable. There hasn't been a full-scale war since the formation of the Republic.
I will not let this Republic that has stood for 1,000 years be split in two.
We know that the last time that the Jedi went toe-to-toe with lightsaber-wielding opponents was roughly 1,000 years before the Phantom Menace, not 200.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
That still would have been 800 years before the use of this lightsaber, and so it does really make me question the decision to put this lightsaber here. It really feels like they just wanted to dive straight into that knightly format and just put this whole thing in the wrong era. I actually think that the High Republic could have been really good. I mean, it still might be. It hasn't come out. I can't judge that yet, but I think that it would have certainly been better if they had placed it in an era where they could have been going toe-to-toe with Sith, or at least other lightsaber-wielding opponents. I mean, I suppose they could be going toe-to-toe with Dark Jedi, which the difference between a Dark Jedi and a Sith is pretty much just a Jedi who went to the dark side but hasn't embraced the Sith teaching, or more specifically, has not had Sith mentorship. But even still, it does feel like a waste to put all of these really cool Arthurian stories in an era that is the golden era of the Republic. This is an era of unparalleled peace. The Jedi are doing their job, and there aren't a lot of major threats to the galaxy. Now, we know that there are going to be some threats that look like they're going to function a little bit more like Genghis Khan, but still, it doesn't really fit, if I'm being totally honest. In short, this changes a lot of what we had previously assumed about the crossguard lightsaber, namely that it would have fallen out of practice, I would have assumed, around 900 years before the Phantom Menace, not 200 years. That would have made a lot more sense to me, being that would have been enough time for the Jedi to realize that they weren't fighting against other lightsaber-wielding opponents and were primarily dealing with opponents with blasters, and it would have been more prudent to use a standard straight blade, straight hilt lightsaber, since that you can more deftly manipulate to make contact and redirect blaster bolts, and not needing to go toe-to-toe with other people wielding lightsabers or even bladed weapons. The crossguard and the curved hilt would have likely fell out of practice, I would have assumed, around the same time. Now, yes, there can be outliers. We know, for instance, that Dooku built a curved lightsaber because he believed that the Sith would return and he wanted to be prepared to do combat against them. So again, his lightsaber was built because he anticipated lightsaber to lightsaber combat, and so that makes me really curious about this cross-guarded lightsaber. In short, I've already said this, but it really feels like the High Republic should have been set in the Old Republic. That would have given the authors and the writers the freedom to tell stories about a multitude of Jedi going against a multitude of Sith. But despite the fact that there is almost nothing defined in the era between the last great battle of the Sith and the Phantom Menace, that doesn't change the fact that this era is incredibly restrictive, since we know that they cannot openly go to war with lightsaber-wielding opponents. This is a really interesting lightsaber design, and I just can't help, as much as I feel like this hurts the lore, or at least backs them into a corner in regards to the lore, I just really like that this lightsaber exists. I think that the idea of an Excalibur lightsaber is just one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and I really cannot wait until someone does a replica of this, because you know I'm going to buy it. The lightsaber has that, red button, which is emblematic of the prequels, and it has that white, gold, and black, which really reminds me of the Eternal Empire. Let me know what you guys think of this lightsaber. Let me know what you guys think about the lore and their decision to put this new era of storytelling in an era that I think is incredibly restrictive. Do you think it's as restrictive as I do, or do you like that we're touching on an era that we haven't really seen explored before? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, because as always, I want to know what you, my friends, have to say about our favorite galaxy far, far away. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you learned absolutely nothing new, feel free to leave a thumbs down, absolutely guilt-free, because that tells me I'm not doing my job. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the lore be with you, now and forever.